All right, good afternoon. This is a city workshop to try to finish up the fiscal year budget for 2022. And I believe after last Thursday's meeting, we were relatively close. I know there's been a number of people behind the scenes looking at different scenarios. So with that, I know I had sent some emails out Tuesday in order to set this meeting up. And one of the things that I had suggested was, even like last Thursday when we were talking that we got that grant for $744,000 and where did it go, what did we do? And so I'd asked Shelley Tuesday, where were our reserves last year and where are they today? And so last May of 2020, our reserves were 673,000. And today they're around 1.9 million. And I'm not saying we should squander anything. I'm just saying that through COVID-19 and all the struggles that everybody had, it appears that we did better than probably most communities fared. And so I just wanted to keep that open, that if we do have some things that we want to do, we should be able to allocate some of that grant money that we received and utilize it.
Well, I understand what you're saying and where you're coming from, okay? But I feel that if you can balance the budget, it should be balanced and reserves to be used for anything that is basically going to be overruns, because a budget is only an estimation, okay? And a lot of times you are going to go over, okay? There is possibilities of anything, okay? I wouldn't want to use too much of the reserves if we can come close to balancing it and keep the reserves for, let's say, you got overtime. You got something that comes up that we need to get, we can go get it because we do have these reserves. It's up to you, but I'm just.
No, but, and I understand what you're saying,
yeah.
And I don't want to just
I'm not taking,
it.
I don't looking for taking things, a whole bunch of things out here.
But the question I'm asking is if someone comes up to us and says, hey, you got that grant for $744,000, what did you guys do with it? And it appears that what we did with it is we put it in reserves and we didn't do anything.
Well, we did a lot of things except for during COVID. We didn't do as many things as possible that we had planned to do with last year's budget. That's where some of the money came from.
Some of our revenue was down,
right?
Which Shelley had put in her email. Some items were down, gaming and cannabis.
Right. Well,
but the flip side, our expenditures were down too.
Right.
But regardless, somehow we ended up with 1.2 million more than we started with.
I will say that's a good job by our grant writers.
Well, I think you'd have a tough time getting another one.
Well, that's
true. And what did you do with that last one you got?
Well, we identified items to get that 744,000, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So shouldn't accounting wise, shouldn't that have been credited towards those accounts? We still get the money, I understand that, but.
Right, but so what we got it for, Tom, is Dave had checked and found out that we could put in because it had to be COVID related.
Right.
We could put in the salaries of our firefighters.
Right.
If they were on COVID related stuff. Well, the Department of Public Health had told the paramedics that treat every single call as if it's COVID. So we turned in the salaries for all of the guys and it was approved.
Right.
So basically we got the money that we already allocated to pay those firefighters.
Right. So in essence, budget wise, it should have reduced the salaries line because we paid towards that. So yes, we still have that $744,000 to use. I don't know as if I have a big issue balancing the budget using reserves or, to a
And I'm
certain
not saying
extent, some
spend
reserves.
700 grand. I'm
No,
saying
right, I
If we
understand.
get down to where we're a couple hundred
Yeah,
away,
A couple hundred, I don't care, but we're 481,000 right now off, okay? And I feel that we can actually trim that down quite a bit. And we could get what we want, actually.
well, yesterday I'd asked Dave to check with Herb Klein about the TIF expenditures because, and I was just looking at the salaries that the TIFs usually reimburse. And we cut that number down quite a bit because last year there weren't a lot of TIF projects, a lot of projects in the TIF zone. So we didn't feel we could do it. And I said to Dave, I said, well, I would make the argument that last year was COVID. And that this coming year, there's a lot of projects coming up that are going to be in the TIF, and the budget is supposed to be prospective for next year.
right.
And, but rather than me make a decision, I asked him to check with Herb, the attorney. And so he came back with these possible TIF transfers that we could do if we wanted to.
Well, I know, NCICG put the grant together, and we were very thankful and very fortunate to receive those funds, regarding the COVID pandemic. Putting those into reserves, I know off the hand, and, everyone here on council knows too, that in the fire department, we're looking at the useful lifespan of an aerial firefighting truck that we have. That's going to be a very expensive cost to replace here in the next few years. The 700 and some thousand would be a very nice chunk of change towards the purchase of that, as well as if we were able to finance that and make payments on that for a while, because that's going to be upwards over $1 million, if I'm correct, Tom?
1.2 to replace that truck right now, I believe.
And with having, a grant gift of $744,000, that's a very significant chunk of change that we were not expecting. That very well could go towards the purchase of that in the future. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
I would also look at the idea, and I know we haven't got it yet, and there's a possibility we're going to get some more money from a federal government, okay? And that itself would be a good thing to spend some of that money if we get that money in the future.
Well, we don't know what strings are going to be on that money.
No, we
too.
don't.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I'm not taking a position either way. I said, we're off 480.
well, if we.
And there's some scenarios here to look at
Yeah.
to move forward.
Well, okay, can I read the first part of the list there, if you don't mind? Okay, on the video gaming, okay, we raised that by $49,206, okay? Reason being is we'd estimated it a lot lower, okay, for this year. Okay, but from May 1st to May 1st of next year, okay, I went around and checked out a few places yesterday, and you can go to these places right now during the day, and every one of these machines are full. They're literally full. I don't care where you go. I went up to like Ruby's and with Jackpots next door and a few other places. Okay, people are actually out doing stuff now. They're back to spending money. So I feel we would at least be close, and this isn't as much as we got before COVID. It's like $30,000 less. But I feel that we could raise
So
that
what
line.
number did you put in for total?
Well, we haven't changed it yet.
We haven't
left it-
changed it.
We left it at the 374.
Yeah.
It's on this right here.
Oh, that's different than what we had last week.
Right,
Yeah, what we were using was 423.
yeah, 423 would be, what would be raising it
If we
to.
change it to 423, it increases
And
that a little
before
bit.
COVID, it was up around 448, 450.
To elaborate on Wayne's point, when I calculated that initially, that arrived at the 374 that's in there now. I think that's right. Yeah, the 374. I was using, the last 2 months, we got about right at $20,000. So I used 5 months at 20, and then prior to that, prior to COVID, we were averaging right around 39,000. So I was using 7 months at 39, 5 months at 20. And based on our conversation 2 days ago, we essentially went back to what we would say essentially was pre-COVID. The 423 was what we had budgeted last year, and it's slightly less than a complete 12-month pre-COVID period.
Right. So that's one of the
And
reasons.
so why would you figure it would be less than pre-COVID?
There's no particular reason there, assuming that we are fully back to pre-COVID levels and maintain that for a 12-month period.
That would be from May 1st to May 1st.
Right.
Okay, we're not at May yet. And one of the places that I know pretty well is back at full tilt. I mean, we're taking in just as much as we were our profit as we were before. And if you go online and look at the different profits for the different places, you'll notice that all of a sudden they jumped when people could actually go out and start using the machines. And I'm not saying we're gonna go up past, where we were before. This is actually probably about $20,000 less than we were before.
Right.
So I figure we'll definitely be in that range.
What was the total we were off at the start of this? 480 something?
It's 481,674. On the last page.
Okay.
Okay.
So continued on your list.
Okay, on the canal fund, or canal rental fund, transfer that 47,266 over to general corporate. Okay, that's money we're closing in an account. All right. In the fire department, and this is, I know it's yours, JJ, but somehow, some way, we got to put a little bit of control on the amount of overtime that is being put in over there. I can remember a few years back that when we hit 275, it was like a total disaster. Now we're closing in at 400,000 for a year. It's extreme. There's got to be some clamps put down, and we got to do something. And I don't know we can
In
do.
response to that, Wayne,
Yeah,
if you look at the last few years, the overtime has been up. That's due to injuries, individuals retiring. We have minimum staffing that we have at the fire department
7,
that we have to have.
right.
When there's an injury, as soon as somebody retires from the department, by the time it takes to get someone else into the department, you're talking 2 to 3, possibly 4 months,
Well, it's actually 6 months sometimes.
depending on if the current eligibility list, if there are
Right.
candidates to do it, and or if we have to go out and retest and not test.
Well, I
and
think
vice
that's
versa.
something we got to work out in the contract.
So
We're
there's,
dealing with them.
well, I don't know what we can work with in the contract with having minimum staffing. We have to have minimum staffing.
Well, I'm not saying the minimum staffing.
Change the number.
Right, I mean, I'm talking not.
Move it down to 6 guys,
Right,
or 5.
right, right now, we got one guy going to school down there at University of Illinois. He could have been done 3 or 4 months ago if he'd went to Romeoville or the other place up north.
No, actually, he wouldn't have, Wayne, because he
Okay.
just got hired in February.
February. So there's no other schools available any time of the year except for them 2 times a year.
He just got hired in
No,
February.
Wayne, we negotiated that in the contract, and the union has agreed to that.
They have agreed to it?
From what I read, they said they agreed to that.
Right.
So that's a moot point. Move on.
That individual got into the academy as quickly as he could.
Right.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, we had a retirement, we had a list, we went through the list got expired.
Well, what do you think, JJ?
We didn't have suitable
600,000, 500,000 for next year's overtime then?
No.
I mean, come on.
No, I'm not
I mean, we're
thinking
going
that.
beyond reality
The
here.
reality of it is here, when you're talking about cutting $100,000 out of an expense, which is gonna be what that is, we're $100,000 short,
Mhm.
is what that's gonna come down to. If you look at the last few years.
I'm
if you look
thinking
at
that the
Wayne,
control
can I
over there is
fin-
not
Wayne,
in
can I-
control.
Can I finish, please?
Yeah.
When you look at the numbers over the last few years historically, yes, that overtime number is higher.
Yes, it is.
But if you also look at our salaries and our wages, that's way lower than what they're supposed to be because of retirements, people leaving. we're basically paying the salaries out of overtime versus out of salaries, Wayne. We're not going over on salaries because we have had reduced staff because of retirements, other individuals that come into the department, and they've actually left. That brings up a shortage on the minimum shift levels that requires overtime.
We have 9 shifts, correct?
Complicate the issue this year with a few individuals that are off on injuries that they're recovering from. That's going to take overtime. Throw COVID in there, where you have 6, 7 guys at one time have to quarantine for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, that they come back to work. Some other individuals may get infected, or maybe need to quarantine because they're affected, or they may have been exposed to another
But you
individual.
just answered my question, JJ.
They've
That's
had to
because
quarantine.
we're not going to have 2, 3 people taking off 2 weeks at a time because of COVID, because they got the shots. We're not going to have, we got a guy going to school right now. We got 2 guys off injured. That's 3 guys, 1 per shift. There's still 8 people per shift right now, okay? So the max, you need to have 7 on a shift, if I'm correct.
There's 7 on
Yeah.
shift line.
I just think that it's
Not 8.
getting relatively, extremely high on the overtime in that department. Just, that's my feeling.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next item.
Okay. Next item was, Don can explain this where we calculated it out.
Yeah, item 4 was really just in part because of negotiating right now and looking specifically at what all the stipends are within that department for those that are covered by the collective bargaining agreement. And even though it's fluid as far as what increase there may or may not be, looking at that, it looks like that is a bit high in the budget, and I suspect includes the potential comp time payout for a retiree.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So how many retirees you have going to retire next year?
Potentially 1.
Which one is that?
And that is for that, basically that about Wayne Christensen.
He is retiring.
No,
Oh,
potentially he could.
yeah, he could.
He could. You have to have that in the budget in case he's going to retire.
Okay. So we couldn't use that out of reserves if he did retire then?
If you're anticipating an expenditure, you should have it in the budget and not rely on reserves for it.
Okay.
Something to use reserves for would be something unexpected, like a natural occurrence
Right.
or a weather disasters such as the tornado that we experienced, and as well as the derecho and tornado that we experienced this year.
Well, that takes us to the next item, okay? $92,670 for education. The most we've spent in the last 5 years is $27,000 a year. I understand that's contractual, okay?
Yes, contractual, it is in the contract, how much
Right.
money is allotted
We've
per
never
staff
used
person.
it. So they're not either getting their education or what's going on?
It's in the contract that they have amount annually per year.
What'd I say? I
That we have
didn't
to
ask you
allot.
that. I asked you, they're not getting all the education they need, or they're not going to these classes, or what's happening? Because we're not using all that money each year.
You referenced the 2 years, a number of the
27,000 some odd bucks.
certifications and stuff that the departments have.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are on 3-year terms, so it's not every year that they're
Mm-hmm.
going to get those, but there are other educational opportunities that they have, and it's set in there per the contract.
I'm just saying, sometimes you don't want to put money where you don't always need it all the time, okay? If you're not going to use it, and you're putting it in there, it's a placeholder for $44,000 that doesn't get used, okay? When you're creating a budget, that possibility that this is going to be what happens, okay? And it hasn't happened. So you got to look realistically what has happened in the past. I mean, it'd be great if they all went to school and did $92,000 worth of training, but it's not happening. I don't think you could make it happen, to be honest with you. And I don't know, Tom, can you get everybody to go to class, every class, all the time, every year? You've been there.
Well, That, I think that it fluctuates, who goes to classes. I think some of the classes end up getting paid by other means, with, through grants and that kind of stuff also. But the point of the matter is if you don't have it budgeted for, you can't spend it. I think our legal counsel will tell you that. So if you cut a line out and you don't have it budgeted for it, like the potential
But we're not cutting the line out.
the potential buyout of someone who's leaving, you can't, I mean, well, I suppose you can just lump it in all salaries and it's covered, but
Right.
you're gonna overdraw that line. And as far as the overtime goes, Wayne, there's two ways you can reduce the overtime in the fire department. And this has been going on, not just last year, the year before, this has been going on for 25 years.
It's been growing.
If reduce the injuries, nobody off injured, or increase the staffing. That's the only way you're gonna reduce the overtime.
Well, what we got to really look at is police and fire cost us over 50% of the budget right now. And it keeps growing.
Of course it keeps going.
I mean, it keeps growing every year. I mean,
Well, and it also entails approximately 81 employees too, full-time.
All right, well, let's
okay.
keep rolling here.
Okay, the other one was the ambulance, but right now that I see that we can get that out of the TIF, okay, that's not a bad idea. Okay, Public Works was 57,000, that was for a leaf vac, and $99,952 from purchasing 2 vehicles to financing them. And then we got the possible TIF transfers, 100,000 community development salaries, 135,000 for half of the new ambulance purchase, 25,000 towards Washington Park fountain and electrical improvements, and 100,000 towards Main Street Bridge. That's the way, if you want to move some around or do something, we got TIF possibly 200, 300, 350, 360,000 there. That could help out.
All right, well, looking at your list here, if we go back to the top, it doesn't sound like anyone has an issue of the video gaming or the canal rental. So that gets us 96,472. I agree with JJ and Tom that we probably shouldn't change the overtime on the fire department. But on the payroll thing, if we can save 34,000 there and 44,000 on the dues and education, that's another 78,442. And then we'll save the rest of that for further discussion. But then if you look at the TIF, if you did the Main Street, Washington Park, and community development salaries, that's 2.25. That brings us right at 399 and some change.
Right.
And
Not
then
to
there's-
interrupt, Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, I just saw in here that the $100,000 toward community development salaries, there's already 73,564.
Yeah, so that was when Dave did the initial TIF budget, we already did those two. So the $100,000 would be towards like 2023 prize. So like we would do a transfer
So
early and then 100,000 later in
It
the
would
fiscal
truly be an
year.
addition. of
Correct.
100. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So my point is, we're down to,
less than 100.
we're less than 100,000. So we can have a discussion on the ambulance and the public works stuff, how you want to do that.
So, Pete, speaking from the Public Works Department, eliminating the lead back, I don't think is a huge deal. Because I want to eliminate it altogether, and I know that's a sad subject, a bad subject with everyone, but, I don't want to get in a fight about that tonight, about a one, garbage carrier to take care of leaf, and we can get rid of the dumpster.
Yeah, don't screw up my vacation.
I'm not gonna.
Right, we're not gonna do that yet. Well, I think, and this is just my opinion here, which sometimes isn't the greatest here, but On the ambulance, we could actually finance that and take 30,000 from general fund and 30,000 from, the TIF and pay for it over 5 years and still get that ambulance. I mean, JJ, you would know better what kind of shape they're in than I do, but I mean.
Well, this is one of the 14s that's,
Right.
you know, it's pretty much at the useful life that it's been at. It needs to be replaced, it needs to be upgraded.
Well,
Thankfully, you know, back in 2014, former Chief Newberry had the insight that worked with the manufacturer Osage, that they had this chassis or the box that you could actually just put onto a new chassis, which was a considerable cost savings moving down the line that we're going to be able to achieve with that. And again, it was a good thing that he had the foresight. So these things over time, chassis do rot out. Ambulances and emergency vehicles, they're sitting in a garage, they're expected to start right up and they're expected to go over roads, they're expected to hit potholes, they go everything. And over time, components wear. We do put a lot of miles on these vehicles and we need to have something reliable that we're going to transport.
Well, they're hard miles too.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. I mean, I'm willing to actually.
Well, anyway, right, with Commissioner Rodriguez saying that she'd back off on the 57,000 for the Leaf Act, now that puts us at about 456. You know, which we haven't touched the ambulance, and we wouldn't need to finance the vehicles on the public works. I guess the question would be, do we want to take advantage of part of the ambulance purchase from the TIF?
Well, you could take part of it, you could do that with 30,000 as each year for paying for it, or you could do it as 135,000 to pay for it. You'd have to take 135,000 out of the general fund to pay for it all at once.
Or if,
Well, if we take it,
or if we make,
35 out of general fund, then we're in the hole again.
Right, but I would say we take 30,000 out of the general fund and 30,000 out of TIF and pay for it over a 5-year period.
well, for example, if we did finance it for 5 years, could we make, well, Dave left the room, but could we make like the first 2-year payments out of the TIF? Say 60 next year, 60 2022, and then switch over to paying out a general corp. We can, I don't know if we've got the flexibility to do that. With
Well,
the fund, do we?
I don't have any problem
I don't
with
think-
taking 100,000 out of,
Would you say that?
I don't think
Out
there'd
of
be any
your,
restriction on doing that.
reserve is for like 100,000. I just didn't want to take 481,000 out. But you want them ambulances to run, so I don't really have any problem buying an ambulance.
Yeah, I don't want to get rid of the ambulance.
No, and we talked last time about
Yeah.
getting the power loaders and stuff for those,
Right.
and we've got some pricing on those to move forward on those. And the new ambulance is gonna be coming here very soon. We'll have the power loader and everything with it.
Mhm.
The one we're shipping off is gonna get the new power loader and stuff with that one. So that's 2 out of the 4.
Right.
And like we discussed last time, if we go ahead and there's money in the budget for this upcoming year,
Mhm.
the other 2 are gonna get sent to get them in there as well too.
Okay, one of them is the transfer one, right? We got 4 ambulances. One's a transfer ambulance, correct?
We've got one that you say we keep in reserves
Yeah.
for that call. And then one that's typically the transfer one is one that's going to get out and it's going to get a lot of high mileages on it. And that's actually the one that we're replacing now.
Okay. So 30/30 and finance it?
Well, you got it. Hear me out here, though.
Yeah.
So right now, we're at almost 457,000 is what we've saved. And we still have 60 in the budget for the fire or the ambulance.
Right.
If Dave can get us 135, what's the total ambulance, 270?
Like 270, but we wouldn't be spending that 135 saved this year.
Well, he can get the
No,
135
what
this year.
I'm saying is get to 135 this year, and then find out if you can make the balance of the payments in 2 years.
Or could
So
we,
next year, we have to do 70 grand, the next 2 years,
could we transfer? Could we transfer the 135 to say, well, could we transfer the 135 to reserves or to general corporate, vice versa?
No.
No, it's got to be a TIF expense.
Right,
So he's saying
But then-
what's the expense is half the ambulance. So he can transfer 135,000. What I'm saying, save the 60, take the 135 from TIF. And our
Yeah,
budget
190
is
something.
balanced.
Which at least
And then we
75.
know we owe 135 over the next 2 years, and we just budget for 70,000 each year for the next 2 years.
however it needs to be done or whatever it's done, I'm fine with taking the 135 from the TIF and using that to pay for however it works out in paperwork, I'm fine
Maybe
with
you're
doing
saying
it.
this way, but, so the 135, if you used half of it essentially for a down payment, the other half for financing the first year, right? And then next year, you would start the financing coming from general corporate.
I don't think you could do that. I think you.
Yeah, but all that expense in the first year, Wayne, is an expense of that ambulance being paid by the TIF.
I don't think you can do half of the ambulance. Okay, if you spend $60,000 this year on the ambulance, you can only do 30 TIF and 30 general fund, okay? Now, if we want to do 75 out of,
Wayne, I don't think you're right there.
you think we could just spend all the TIF money at one time when we're not?
No, what I'm saying is, the total amount of the ambulance is 270.
Correct,
The TIF's paying 135, general corporate's paying the rest.
right.
It doesn't matter that general corporate's gonna pay it over 2 years.
Okay, you're looking
It's-
at paying the other 75,000.
It's just that it gets paid, the other half gets paid by general
Okay, I
corporate.
got you.
I would suggest that we finance the remainder over 3 years though, instead of 2, but
Well, either way, I'm just saying that I think we can get where we are budgeted based on all these scenarios. Keep the ambulance in, take advantage of the TIF transfers. And,
So are we kind of suggesting then the 270, putting down 135 on it, financing the rest of it for say like 3 years and then that?
Right, and we pay for it all at once, but we finance the 135,000 for 3 years.
Whichever way it would work. If we can use the TIF funds for that purchase for the community, I'd be supportive of doing that.
Write that up, Don, correctly.
Do what?
Write it up correctly.
Okay.
so the first, just so I'm clear, the first payment due from the general fund would be approximately out of May 1st, 2022. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but we're still taking out a loan this year for it.
Right, but the first payment would be.
And generally, I would, if we could, shy away from financing, but we are at historically low rates right now, too.
Right.
Right.
So it's a good time to finance.
So that still puts us about 60,000 short.
no, because we're picking up the 60 that we were gonna pay out of general fund
Oh,
for the
okay, well,
ambulance.
the 60 will go into, well, we're pretty damn close to being balanced.
We're
Within
perfect.
1,000 or 2 or whatever it is.
No, I think we're 3,000 to the good.
Okay.
Does anybody need
Tom
3,000?
Setchell
or-
didn't have nothing on me.
No, don't do that.
Does anybody need 3,000 for anything, or, coffee, donuts, or? Yeah, that should put us within.
Don, are you double checking these numbers?
I was going to, but I was off,
Sleeping
I was
down
off,
here.
no, I was off from what you were. So you're saying 1 and 2 were fine, 3, no.
No, yeah.
4 and 5, yes.
4 and 5, yes.
And then 6, we would be eliminating because we're gonna finance it a different way.
Right.
And then on 7, we're just gonna take the,
57 out. And
Well, no, wait a minute.
finance the
is
others.
the 57,
The individual,
57 is just the leaf back.
yeah, that number was
The
bigger.
financing on the 2 trucks,
The whole number originally
was
was
saving,
224.
Okay, so if we just take the 57,
Right, we're still buying the 2 trucks for cash.
right,
Well, that number was 127,000.
Right.
If
Yeah,
we
but
if we
well, we were
finance it, then we're
saving
eliminating
99,952.
so we're doing 96, 472 plus 78, 472 plus 60 plus 57 is 291.
Which commissioner should I forward the leave phone calls to?
You,
Send them directly to me.
actually, I hate to tell you this, Marlo, but somehow my name's first on the list, so I get them anyway. I don't know what it is. It must be when they call here or something, or they look at the screen and they see it. I get a lot of phone calls. Well, how'd you get my number? Well, you were right, you were right on the first on the list. Which is no big deal.
And then, Mayor, on the bottom ones, so the 135 is a yes.
Mhm.
What about the other 3?
The other 3
Yeah.
are too then.
All yes.
All right. My math right.
I think, so. I mean, it appears that if we do 1 and 2 and 7, and the TIF transfers, we're at 513.
Yes. And that's 513.
So we're 30,000 to the good.
1 and 2, right?
Yeah, I was coming up with, that we're,
Yeah.
not that's bad to
7.
save too much, but we were saving too much.
Well, 7's only 57,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
If you add those numbers up, it's 513,472.
But we're adding, okay, well, we're not adding anything because we're gonna finance it. And we won't have the financing charge the next year. So your 3, 4, 5 leave the same,
I didn't do
even
that.
though I still feel that we should work on it overtime.
60,000 more.
Right. Oh, that's why I had another number,
So we're
573.
We're actually 573, if we do it that way.
Right.
To the good.
Don, if you want to check my math, I mean, where I'm at is 360,000 in TIF expenses,
Mhm.
right? 49,206, which is item 1. 47,266, which is item 2. And $57,000 out of item number 7.
But then you got.
Plus 60,000.
Plus 60, so put the
You
lead
got
back
down
in.
to
Yeah, but you
60
gotta
also.
understand though, that we were only gonna pay 60 on the ambulance.
Right.
And the TIF's gonna pay 135. We only get credit for 60.
Right.
But that 60 was in the budget,
I know it.
so
Right.
you
Oh.
I didn't even count that.
still
Yeah,
count it.
you got the 135 is in there. Either way, I think we're to the
I
good.
think it's-
You
yeah.
might,
Very close.
after Don gets done, you might be able to put the leaf back in.
I think we will too. That 60,000 will cover the leaf back.
Tom, what numbers were those again? 127
1, 2, 7, and then all
the
possible tip.
and all TIFs?
All
Yeah.
tip, yeah.
That's what I thought.
There's only 57,000 out of the number 7.
Well,
Where we're paying-
okay, actually, no, you're circling number 6 too, because you're putting that back in.
Well, that's when you look at all that, you might be able to
Yeah.
put the leaf back in.
Yeah, I'm at 573, 472.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what we got.
Number.
So actually, you could put the leaf back in, so Marlo don't have any problem with that then.
No, skip the leaf act, let people burn.
Just so it's
Oh,
not
that's
on
what I
asphalt streets.
Tell you. Marlo, I thought you,
Everyone gets a burning barrel. Let's just buy everyone a burning barrel.
okay,
Just kidding.
I already got one.
I'm not fit because of asthma. We're not doing that.
okay, so that actually puts the leaf back in?
Well,
And we're still in good shape.
let Don work through his magic and make
Yeah.
sure, but.
That we didn't screw something up.
No, we are in good shape.
Oh, well, there you go. The money man says we're okay, then we're okay.
They were okay. We'll put it on file for April 6th.
Yeah, we can say, if we have to adjust it, we can still adjust it for final passage.
You want to leave back in or not?
Are you taking these back?
Are we done?
Yep, we
My
should
mind
be.
math was 35,000.
After we're done, we got about 5 minutes to talk about fire department we want to do, or just forget about complete for 2 weeks?
You gonna say something?
Yeah, is everybody in agreement then, or anyone else got anything else in the workshop?
Nope.
All right, we stand adjourned.